This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
No farewell speech from an elder statesman in Parliament today. Good evening, I'm Opal Rhodes, sitting in for Keisha Adley, and this is The Bahamas Tonight. Parliamentary procedure apparently prevented the former Prime Minister from presenting his farewell speech in the lower chamber this morning. It seems as if the North Abaco MP expected to be high up on the agenda, but that didn't happen. Janae Noel Ferguson tells us that the House Speaker explained what led to this decision.
I will allow, and of course with agreement from both sides, the member to make a personal statement at item J of the order of business, which speaks to motions for leave of absence, leave to resign seat, and new writs, which is the procedure followed in 1994 when the former member for Montague, Sir Orville Turncrest, resigned of his place.
And with that, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram and member for North Abaco, who tendered his resignation effective August 31st last week to the Speaker, abruptly left the House, reportedly promising not to return. Speaker of the House, Dr. Kendall Major, explained his reason behind the decision.
The letter, which was intended to be, in my mind, a resignation letter. Ostensibly, that's what we thought we would got. But as I read the letter states that he will resign, the member for North Abaco, distinguished member, will resign on the 31st of August. That being the case, the House has several other opportunities to meet. And so in the view of the rules and the precedents that were set according to the rules, it had no reason to change what we were doing.
Now, the Speaker says that if Mr. Ingram's letter went into effect on July 25th and not on August 31st, his address would have been made top priority. The Speaker says that there was never an agreement in place to have Mr. Ingram address the House higher on the agenda.
I made no such agreement. The agreement I made is that the honourable member will speak on the sitting of Parliament. That's the agreement the Speaker made with the honourable member. I did not lead him to believe that. I indicated to him in our brief moment of communication that he will be given an opportunity to speak.
Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie backed the Speaker's decision, adding emphatically that the decision was not politically motivated.
If he felt aggrieved by what had taken place, then he could have said so in his remarks as he said so that we can advance our democracy. There is no secret about this, what has happened. He came into the House of Assembly. It seems there was some kind of understanding between himself and the Speaker arrived at by themselves. And I can tell you with absolute and total assurance that the Speaker did not speak with me, nor did I speak with him about this matter. And when I heard the Speaker's indication as to the order of business today, it was the first time that I was hearing the order of business, except to say that Dr. Norris reported to me this morning he was in discussions with Nico Grant, the leader of opposition business in the House, about proceedings today. And that Dr. Norris was reporting to me because he knew I wanted to ensure that there was order in the House of Assembly.
Mr. Christie added that this was not the way he thought Mr. Ingram would leave Parliament.
I would have thought this was going to be a day for him to come in and speak triumphantly to his accomplishments, and he hasn't. And I think that's a pity to the country.
Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
Now, international monitors submitting reports after observing our May 7th general election. And today, the country's leader delivered a communication in Parliament on their findings. Altaviz Munnings has that angle of our parliamentary coverage.
The Caribbean Community and Organization of American States reports on the May 7th general elections had similarities and differences. It was the first time in our political history that international observers were invited to monitor the pre-election day and post-election activities. The CARICOM report basically outlined the election process. CARICOM concluded that polling was satisfactory, with electors free to mark for the candidate of their choice in an atmosphere conducive to voting free from fear, and that the May 7th polls reflected the will of the Bahamian people. Prime Minister Perry Christie outlined CARICOM's suggestions Wednesday that he says can contribute to future discussions on electoral reform. Among them, campaign financing legislation and the appointment of an independent boundaries commission.
The establishment of a code of conduct agreed on and signed by all candidates seeking to contest future elections. This would play a significant role in eliminating some of the growing tensions which from reports were unprecedented in previous elections in the Bahamas. This should also limit the extent to which the character of candidates and other stakeholders are attacked on the campaign platform.
CARICOM also suggested changes in the size of voting booths and the layout of polling stations.
The existing voting booths almost completely hide the elector from the view of poll workers and agents. The use of smaller booths, which allows workers to see any attempt by electors to take photographs of the ballots, but at the same time ensure the secrecy of the vote is maintained, should be considered. This would eliminate the need for persons to leave their personal items, including cash, at the door.
The OAS report suggested upgrades in women's electoral participation, the voter registry, and media coverage.
The high participation of women in the electoral process has not translated into a high presence of women in political office or on the lists of candidates presented to voters. The update of voters' lists and constituency boundaries is a positive initiative that guarantees that the electoral register accurately reflects the current voting population. However, the implementation of mechanisms to enhance the impartiality and autonomy of the Boundaries Commission to contribute towards generating even more independence and transparency of the work of the Commission would be positive.
Prime Minister Christie informed House members that Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell will submit the government's formal response to the OAS electoral report during a trip to Washington, D.C. on August 1st. Altaviz Munnings, ZNS News.
Now, there could be some constitutional changes and amendments to the immigration laws once the Bahamian people give the green light. Janae Noel Ferguson tells us that the Foreign Affairs Minister made the announcement in Parliament today.
It's an issue that was put to the Bahamian people in 2002 and rejected. That is the discrimination against women in the Constitution. But according to Minister of Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell, this matter will be brought to the Bahamian people once again, and the government is hoping that the outcome is favorable.
So that it is clear that gender cannot be a reason to discriminate against an individual in this country. This will mean that Article 26 of the Constitution and the preamble to Article 15 of the Constitution will have to be altered and the matter put to the country in a referendum. We trust that the proposed changes, when they come, will receive the unanimous consent of the House.
The government, he said, is also committed to removing the anomaly with regard to women and the ability to pass on their Bahamian citizenship to their children. Mr. Mitchell said that additionally, spouses will be able to apply for permanent residence with the right to work and amend the Immigration Act to allow for longer periods of spousal permits.
This amendment is a fulfillment of the promise in our Charter for Governance on the question of spousal permits. This should relieve many of the processing issues and delays accompanying the applications for spouses who apply for legal status in the Bahamas in order to reside and work here.
But exactly when will all of this take place? This was the issue raised by MP for Long Island, Loretta Butler Turner. While he could not give a specific time, Mr. Mitchell says that certain things have to happen first.
There is a constitutional commission which has been formed, which is headed by Sean McQueenie QC. And these matters have to be put in a formal presentation to the government. And once those formal steps are done, then the matter will be presented to the House. I wouldn't want to be pinned down on a time frame except to say it will be before the end of this term. And we expect